What's up, guys? Kyle here again, and welcome to the very first Viewers Comments episode. I don't know why I'm doing this with my face. This is a very new series that will alternate with my Fackin' Friday series every Friday, where I just go through and take a look at some of the comments that you guys leave on my videos and reply to them if I have something to say in response, or if I feel like I can add to the comment or clear any information up in any way. Or I will just be kind of casually roasting some of you guys too, because that sounds fun. If I do roast your comment, don't get your feelings hurt. It's all in good fun. No, but really, over the life of my channel, I've definitely seen some comments where I've wanted to reply and kind of clear some things up in regards to certain videos or things that were going on in the video that people commented about. So I feel like this is kind of a good way to go in and answer individual questions on certain videos that I have done recently, or address any issues that you guys may have with them. So that all being said, that is the premise of this series. Go figure. It's not original whatsoever. I'm pretty much ripping off every other YouTuber out there that has a channel similar to mine. I never claimed to be the most original guy out there, but you know what? I like the format. It helps me engage with you guys in a more active way, and I'm into that. I'm into the community growing and me actually being able to respond to your guys' comments and answer questions that you have that don't directly relate to Fackin' Friday episodes. So I'm gonna stop talking about what this series is about, and we're gonna get into it. First comment, Dustin Nichols says, "You know, I've been following this channel since it was a very little baby, and I gotta say I am far from tired of knowing that you use an SM57. The consistency is always very appreciated. I know what a 57 on a V30 sounds like, so every time you showcase something else, I'm getting a very good idea all around how that piece of gear sounds and will react with my gear as I use the same stuff." Yeah, Dustin, I gotta say, that was kind of the premise of this entire channel. Once I really kind of got it figured out and started a year ago, although I don't use the same cabinet every single time, I always have a microphone on a V30 when I'm demoing an amp or a pedal or something like that. So you guys know realistically how it's going to compare with a lot of my other demos, or if you're very familiar with an SM57 on a V30, which a lot of metal guys are gonna be familiar with generally how that sounds, then you're really able to take that and apply it to whatever amp, overdrive, guitar that I'm using and get a good idea of how it sounds based on that common denominator. So yeah, I mean, we've been over this before too. Not every V30 sounds the same, not every cab sounds the same. So there are gonna be definitely some differences, but because I am close miking things and I'm generally only switching between a couple cabs, it's usually my Mesa, my Ampeg cab, and recently it's been my Metzebarba, and my Metzebarba will probably stick around for quite a while because this cab sounds incredible, but it's always an SM57 on a V30, close as humanly possible as I can get that microphone to the actual cone of the speaker. I usually have the mic shoved right up on that grill cloth, and again, that's just for consistency's sake, because most people out there who are watching my channel are gonna be familiar with a V30 and how an SM57 sounds pushed up on a V30, and they're going to be able to take what they're hearing and apply it to what they already are familiar with as far as tones from those two pieces of gear, and know that the amp is creating the differences that they're hearing, if that makes any sense. So I'm glad that most people seem to be into that. I love speakers and cabinets, so it is a little bit of torture on me, even though the V30 is my go-to speaker, to mic everything on the same speaker every time. But if I start miking different speakers and different cabinets all the time, then it's really going to kind of be hard for you guys to take that tone and apply it to what you already know, or compare it to any of my other demos or anything like that, because a speaker is going to vastly change the sound that you guys are hearing on your end. But on the plus side, I'm definitely going to do some speaker demos in the near future. Weber sent me some stuff. I already did some speaker demos with Warehouse guitar speakers, but I'm not done with those. I'm going to do some more stuff with those, and I have a whole bunch of Celestion speakers from my own personal collection that we're going to shoot out at some point, and I'll show you guys how big of a difference that the speaker really makes, even in the same cabinet with all the same gear. It really is the most important part of your signal chain when you are trying to form your signal. So, as always, long-winded answer. Tim H. Collins asks, "Where can I get that Revv hat?" I have seen you ask me this a number of times, and sorry, I keep forgetting to reply to you, man. Revv sent it to me with the generator that they sent me to demo way back earlier this year. I believe that you can buy them from their website, or you can reach out to them via their contact form on their website if you want to pick up one of those hats. try going on to Revv's website and reaching out to them if you can't find it on there. I know they have their t-shirts and stuff posted for sale, but yeah, they were kind enough to send me the hat with the amp when they sent me the generator back in like March, I think it was. So David Cox commented on my Belligerence in Stereo video where I'm using a 2-channel dual rectifier, and he said, Kyle, did you know if you clone red to vintage on the back of the amp and then play it on a red channel, now vintage high gain, you will have both presence controls active in the circuit. The red's presence is at the end of the preamp, and the orange's is near the power amp, which really sets the overall voicing brightness of the vintage mode and red channel. Red's presence serves as a fine tuner when ran like this. I did not know that. Honestly, I had no idea, and that just shows you guys, for as much as I do know, there is a lot that I do not know, and I had no idea that that was the case. But now you've got me really curious and I want to check it out. I know that the rectifier and pretty much any Mesa amp has a lot of like little tips and tricks and weird tweaks that you can do to the EQ settings, especially with like the channel cloning and stuff, to get different sounds out of them. And I admittedly am not the best person to explore all those because I tend to just kind of go for the simplest option, the option or the path of least resistance. I like simple amps. I like amps that are easy to dial in, and I also pretty much only use one tone when I'm playing. I'm not a dynamic player whatsoever, so I never really deep dive into the options all that much, but that's not saying I'm opposed to it, especially for something like the rectifier where I tend to like it once I've worked on it pretty heavily. It's not the easiest amp to dial in for my ear and my taste, what I like, but things like this, knowing something like this, the next time I go to turn that 2-channel dual rectifier on, I will definitely check that out. So cloning, I can't even say it off the top of my head. It sounded really complicated because I know you can clone one channel to another and everything, but I will look into that the next time that I run that head and mess around with it. And if I really feel like it makes a huge difference, maybe I'll make a short video on it, as well as re-showcasing the treble at 0, which is something that I tend to dial in on rectifiers all the time as well, because that brings the mids forward. Those are things that a lot of people don't know about those amps, and it can really change the voicing of them pretty significantly. So thank you very much for the tip. I'm definitely gonna look into that, man. Ricky Gonzalez asks, can you please try out the CR120 head from Orange? It's supposed to be a solid state version of the rocker Revv, and I just want to hear it played with some solid metal riffs through an overdrive into the amp with a good 412 cab. Everyone classifies it as a good doom metal amp, but I want to see how tight you can play it with your tight chugging technique. Yeah, that amp has actually been probably one of the most requested amps on my channel, period. Honestly, like people are constantly asking me to demo the Orange Crush and now the Orange Super Crush. So there's a lot of interest on that amp, and I will definitely do my best to try and find one, track one down, and get one here on the channel. If you guys are that interested in it, I am more than happy to try and get it and demo it for you guys. The only time I have ever even heard one of those amps, a local punk band was playing it. And I actually, from a distance, thought it was a rocker Revv or something. It sounded really good. So I got up closer to see what exactly the guy was using, and it turns out it's the Orange Crush amp. And I was really genuinely surprised and impressed, and it's intrigued me ever since. I mean, this was 2 or 3 years ago. It was not any time recently, but ever since then I've wanted to try one for myself, and I just haven't had the opportunity to grab one at a good enough price that makes sense for me. However, if my local shop, World of Music, gets one in, I'll make sure to let them know that I'm looking for one, and hopefully they'll let me just take it home for a night, do a quick demo on it, and return it so I can finally get you guys my opinion and some of the tones that I can get out of the Orange Crush 120, because you guys have been commenting and asking for it constantly, and I am nothing if not a man of the people. Okay, the next question was left on about 8 of my recent videos, and after never having seen it, even though the guy says that he left it on a bunch of other videos and I do pay attention to the comments, I'm gonna answer it. Rio Kinsey says, bro, I've asked you roughly the following on half a dozen of your vids now. You never respond in capital letters. I'm sure you're busy and it's just an oversight, but please tell me how aggressive a PV-XXX can get versus an Ubershow. Can it hold its own or does it get destroyed? Standard versus heavily detuned. Insight you can give me on the nature of these two amps individually or collectively would be great. You're the only competent guitarist I've seen playing each of them, let alone owning the two. Big fan. P.S. I want to love the XXX, but every time I listen to it, it sounds so damn mid-rangey and lacking in bottom end. Is this a misconception? Alright, so I am going to answer this in depth, and this will probably be my last one for the day. The Ubershow versus the XXX. Now, generally, what I have noticed from the guitar community that drives me insane to no end is people, instead of judging with their ears and judging by playing amps, and especially playing amps side by side, I know not many people have the same luxuries that I do in that regard, but pretty much every time you compare a low-priced amp with a high-priced amp, people automatically choose the high-priced amp and say it's going to be better. And a lot of times, they've never even played the high-priced amp. They're just going off the hype that is generated from that amp, and the rarity of the amp just tends to generate a reputation as being amazing. So I'm prefacing this statement because I personally will take a XXX over an Ubershow any day of the week. And you guys know that I like the Ubershow. I've demoed it a couple times on my channel. The Revv Blue, the last one that I had, was a really good amp. Really good amp. But it's all gonna come down to personal preference in these matters, and nobody can say whether a cheaper amp is better than an expensive amp or vice versa. You have to play the two to know which one suits your ear better. But in general terms, you're asking about the aggressiveness of the XXX. I think the XXX is a much more aggressive amp than the Ubershow. Now, some people don't want that. They don't want that brightness or that forward mid thing that the XXX has going on. They want the huge wall of sound and the smoothness that the Ubershow brings. The Ubershow, in my opinion, is not this like crazy, super aggressive, super angry sounding amp. It's actually kind of like a cross between a 5150 and a dual rectifier, where it's got the saturation and the smoothness of a 5150, but it's got that big wall of sound and huge low end that a rectifier has going on. But it inherently, it's its own voicing. It's just those are the two closest amps that I can kind of compare it to. But it is smoother. It's harder to get that amp to sound really aggressive and really biting the way that I like my tones to be. So in reality, you got to play the two to know which one is going to suit your ears better. Now, with the XXX has active EQ controls as well as a master and a channel volume, and the individual channel volumes affect the channels that they're not actually engaged on. So for instance, the orange channel, if you turn the red channel volume up while you're on the orange channel, it's going to have like a presence effect and vice versa. So there are some tips and tricks to dialing in the XXX. The XXX also has that very PV upper mid-range thing going on, but on the XXX it can be dialed out, whereas the 5150 you can't really dial out that upper mid cocteau thing going on. The XXX has it too, because I feel like it's just kind of an inherent part of a lot of the PV high gain tube amps. You either love it or you hate it. I personally love it, but the mid control is very sensitive, and depending on where you have the high and the low controls set, or the hair in the bottom, or whatever the hell they're called on the amp, something stupid and cringy, will have a big effect on how forward the mids actually are. So it's really just kind of like a balancing thing. On the XXX, you can really kind of go out of control with any one of those three frequency controls just by dialing it up more than the other two, and then that'll be prominent. You can make the XXX sound absolutely massive. Now, it won't have that same sub-low, big wall of sound thing on the low end that the Ubershow has, but it can get some seriously huge low end going on. So anybody who makes it sound overly tight, overly mid-rangey, or thin, you can change that just by changing the EQ and everything else. So the XXX is honestly still one of my favorite options for high gain amps at any price point. Like it's probably one of my top 5 amps. Probably gonna do a video on my top five favorite high gain favorite 5 amps. I'm probably gonna do a video on my top 5 favorite amps for 2021 as it stands right now, because you guys know that I'm always getting new stuff in and everything. But the XXX is a heavy contender for that list, and it doesn't matter. I can pretty much grab any amp that I want at this point, but the XXX is one that still does everything that I need it to do. And they're cheap, especially on today's market. I mean, the prices have gone up, but they're still cheap comparatively to a lot of the stuff that's out there. So again, play both. Don't rely on videos. I know I'm a YouTuber who makes guitar related videos and sound demos. That's to help you guys kind of get an idea of where an amp lies in the spectrum of everything that's going on. But in reality, only you are going to be able to make that decision based on playing the amp for yourself, especially if you can play it side by side with an Ubershow. I know I was always really excited to try an Ubershow, and then the first time I did, I was pretty let down. And again, it's not because it's a bad amp, it just doesn't suit my style, which is bright, tight, very aggressive tones. The Uber is the wall of sound, big saturation, smooth top end type thing. So it's a very cool amp, but even because it has that legendary reputation of being one of these like high gain, god tier amps, it may not deliver for you, and that's okay. So yeah, hope that answers your question. It is a long-winded way of explaining that whole thing. I enjoyed this. Keep leaving those videos in my comments, guys. I will be doing my very best to reply to you guys. Some days I'm able to get through and answer 50 comments and get back to as many of you guys as I possibly can, and then I'll go 2 or 3 days without not being able to reply, but I'm always reading the comments, guys. I appreciate you guys stopping in. Even the constructive criticism stuff, that helps me grow as a YouTuber and helps me serve you guys better. So, you know what? I didn't roast anybody. Give me a second. XDeathX says, in my opinion, this amp sucks ass in regards to my Randall Satan 120 video I just released. I wasted close to 2K on one. I was so pissed I just gave it away. No cap. I don't know what that means. No wonder Ola never plays it or hardly talked about it. If you gave away a $2,000 amp because you didn't like it, you're dumb. All right, now I'm done. That was not really a roast. I can do better than that. Sorry, guys. Next week, I'll pick the comments ahead of time. Today, I was just kind of scrolling through and grabbing the ones that stood out to me. But anyways, if you like this video, hit that like and subscribe button. Go down into my support section in the description of this video. Click on that Sweetwater affiliate link. That way, anything you guys buy in the next couple of weeks, I get a nice little commission off of, and it greatly helps me keep this channel rolling. Appreciate you guys watching so much. Thanks for being here. Kyle here again. We'll see you next time.